practitioner, but they do not keep it. So I'm asking you to do so. It amazed me with one particular child, how that child's cognitive functions changed. The way the child thought about things, the way the child understood things changed just by the fact that the blood tests that were done came back showing that the child was deficient in a number of vitamins and minerals. I I was so I really honestly is wanting to read this in a book to actually see it happen, right? And so the child was actually making some poor decisions, based on the fact that there was something biological going on. They had their mineral levels were too low, the iron, the vitamin levels were too low, and it could not just, the child needed more than oral supplements to assist them. So please, right? You may be saying to yourself, but I give my children vitamins and things, understandably, but the doctor can also check now for the uptake. So yes, they are taking the vitamins, but it may be, leaving their system too quickly, right? And I have found in my studies that the executive functioning of children, where they make correct decisions, where, they make good time management, right? Their working memory works a lot better. They do so if they have the correct amounts of vitamins and minerals in their body. Simple, old-time strategies I'm giving you, but believe me, they work. Please remove the child, and I'm using the word wean because I don't want it to be done cold turkey. I'm suggesting that you gradually wean the child from electronic games and begin to encourage the child to go out. It's a funny thing with how the brain works. Overstimulation comes from playing the game online. Stimulation also comes from the child playing outside. But when the child sits and plays, the child is not, no energy is exerted and not much, right? When the child plays outside, the child gets a nice vitamin D, they breathe in the nice air and, everything. They sweat and remove things, toxins from their body and that sort of thing, right? So there's always a win-win with the child being outside. If you are living in an apartment complex and the area is small, I believe that there's still something that can be done. Or maybe on a weekend, you have a time when you and the child just go out somewhere. One parent that I dealt with, I was so impressed with her. I was telling her about this, and what she did is that weekend, she took the child out to the beach, and they just spent a day just soaking up the sun and just getting some nice minerals from the water and stuff like that. Let me tell you something. We have not had any problems with the child since then because the child spends more time now outdoors than indoors, and it was done gradually, right? And so the reward system of the brain, the child was rewarded without even realizing it. You don't tell the child everything, You don't even have to explain why you're doing this thing. You just do it because you know that it is better for the child, right? And so the point I'm making is that you reduce interruption of the child's processing of experiences, right? I remember many years ago when I was studying, I learned that when the child eats, right? So the child is sitting down and the child is eating, but the child is playing a game or using a device at the same time. The child is not able to process memory of the food that they ate, the taste and the satisfaction that comes, which also works against the child in that they begin to overeat, right? So there are so many benefits to it, not just self-harm in terms of cutting, but self-harm in terms of overeating and weight gain. God, I wish somebody told me these things when I was a child. Three, another strategy that worked for me is to involve children in activities, social activities. I am I'm seeing where there's a correlation between children being locked up at home. When I say locked up, don't get me wrong, because I understand safety and security. But where the child doesn't get to socialize, you know, outside of the home, it also works against the child, right? And I'm encouraging you to look at the clubs and the societies that are within schools and help that child to become a part of it. Please, I'm asking you, if there are designated days that the child must, do clubs or go to a club or stuff, allow the child to do so. I know you may live far, you have to pick up the child, or that's the time you get off work and things, but please find a way of having the child become, involved in social activities. And I'm suggesting that if it cannot be done at um, school, we have the child do it at church, right? And the benefit of this, reduce overthinking. Most children who cut, when they talk to me as a guidance counselor, you realize that there's overthinking going on. And so if they have something to use that energy in. Another thing is that when they're in clubs and societies, they socialize and they hear from other people how they too are going through certain issues and they too are having to deal with certain things, right? And so it helps them to recognize that they're not alone in this, right? And whatever they are suffering or maybe suffering, there are other persons who are also going through similar things. And if they can overcome it, so can I. And they are not cutting. I don't need to cut either. That's the kind of thing. That's how children reason. Finally, whenever I make this suggestion, the hackles goes up. But I am still suggesting it. I'm begging of you, do not underestimate this strategy. Reinforcement of some things comes from the church. When a child goes into church and hear the pastor, whomever, or the Sunday school or Sabbath school teacher teaching about hope, there's a scripture that comes to my mind, Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. That is a passage of scripture that is said so many times where I am. And it helps a lot of children. Hold on, you mean God actually said that there's hope for me? That there's that he has a plan for me? Yes. Children need to know that there is a plan. A will was written, and yes, they will become. Yes, they will achieve. Yes, they will arrive. A lot of them are worried about, am I going to be an adult? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to pass my CXCs? And when all of these overthinking and these thoughts come in, they start cutting. But then they remember, before cutting, they remember something from Sabbath school. They remember something from Sunday school. And it reinforces moral principles that I don't need to do this. And so instead of cutting, they may choose to pray. Instead of cutting, they may ask someone to pray for them. Please don't underestimate this strategy. Children learn through church not to carry their burdens alone. That is very important. Having said that, please allow me to share with you some helplines. The National Parenting Support Commission helpline is there, 876-560-9272. There's also the Mental Health and Suicide Prevention helpline, as well as the Ministry of Health.gov.jm. The Office of the Children's Registry, once it is reported, self-harm is reported, they will send to you and to the family, to you, the parent and the child, they will send to you a social worker, right? I've seen this help a lot of children. And so the guidance counselor is helping, the parent is helping, and here's an agency of government also helping to move the resources to the child that the child did not know that he or she has, right? So I'm encouraging you, if you must call the number 211, they will respond. If you don't get a response from them, you can write to report at childprotection.gov.jm and ask for help there, okay? You can also, of course, visit the Child Guidance Clinic. They have offices island-wide. You don't even have to look in a directory. You can just go to Google and type it and find the one that is closest to you. If you are in Region 1, there's one at the Comprehensive Health Center in Kingston. Don't worry about it. It's a very safe location. It's on Slipen Road. Very safe location. Very nice parking as well. Right. Now, I think I was given 10 or 15 minutes, and I think I've used it up. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being attentive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Blake, for that wholesome presentation. And thank you for presenting it in a practical way that I know each of us, whether we are clinicians, educators, parents, caregivers, can partake of and can apply in a practical way. I know a number of persons, thank you, have been posing questions in the chat. We will be having a segment after our next presentation, and we ask you to hold those questions and they will be answered as best as possible. And for those who are seeking their certification, their CMEs and the like, we will be sending you the link. The link is in the chat, and we're also making note of that for you to get your CMEs and CEUs. Thank you so much again, Mr. Blake. Our next presenter is Mrs. Shamelia Dawkins Brown, and she too is a guidance counselor. And she will be presenting on how can parents protect and support children from self-harm. Mrs. Dawkins Brown is an experienced educational professional and passionate advocate for the well-being of children and young adults. Mrs. Dawkins Brown holds a master's degree in educational psychology and a bachelor's degree in guidance and counseling, as well as a teaching diploma and a certificate in autism, where she's now a certified autism specialist. She's deeply passionate about supporting students, children, young adults, and families, and is committed to promoting academic, emotional, and psychological well-being through educational and psychological assessment, counseling, and intervention support. Known for her passionate and caring approach, Mrs. Dawkins Brown works closely with children and young adults to help them overcome challenges, build resilience, and achieve their fullest potential, both academically and personally. At this time, I invite Mrs. Shamelia Dawkins Brown to make her presentation with respect to how can parents protect and support children from self-harm. Welcome, Mrs. Dawkins Brown.
It's going to be school or parents?
Right. So I'm actually presenting on what schools can do when they recognize that students are self-harming. Dr. Campbell, are you able to help me share my presentation?
Sure, a member of our media team, IT team, will assist you and give you that privilege. I'm sure they're doing that now. Are you able to now? Are you able to know, Mrs. Dawkins Brown?
Trying to find the icon.
Look at the bottom and you'll see share with the icon, the arrow going up. So you'll see participant, chat, raise hand, then share at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Are you seeing my view?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. All right, so we want to talk about the fact that self-harm is a growing concern among adolescents, and schools serve a very useful role in positioning our students seeking assistance. The truth of the matter is that my colleague just spoke about what
Mrs. Hawkins Brown, my apologies for breaking in. May I invite you to just show full screen and slideshow?
Full screen.
We're not seeing the full screen.
Okay.
Thank you. And then you could maybe put it on slideshow. Yes. And then current slide.
Like from beginning.
From the right, from beginning.
Up top, above.
Oh, that's it. Okay. There we go. Thank you. We're seeing you nice and clear now. Thank you.
Great. So we're looking at the fact that schools are in a very good position to help students who are self-harming. And my colleague previously looked at how parents can actually help their children who are self-harming. We also want to look at the fact that sometimes the parents are notified about the acts of self-harming from the schools. We have seen that, it's not that parents are paying attention, but students self-harm usually are in a situation where hiding as we mentioned earlier. So they aren't necessarily seeking out, they are trying to find the emotional turmoil that they are experiencing. And so we find in a lot of it is their friends may notice that is happening, or a teacher may notice that there's a problem or an issue with harm in the students. And so I want to go into self-harm. We actually looked at that before. We looked at emotional distress, we looked at trauma, we looked at the fact that anxiety and depression can also be causing self-harm. It becomes a safe space when the students are actually dealing with family and the things of that nature. Sometimes students are self-harming with academic and social pressures that are presenting themselves as triggers, that are encouraging the self-harm. So we want to look at the fact that self-harm is often a sign of emotional pain rather than attention-seeking behavior. And we should treat these students compassion and understanding rather than punishment. So my colleague really emphasized the fact that it really is a situation of empathy. And so, what are some of the warning signs that schools may know in terms of self-harm? You may see like unexplained injuries. There are students who want to be wearing the long sleeves in the very sun. So we know the type of climate that we have here in Jamaica. And so you might find that students may want to consistently wear sweaters and things like that, hiding the injuries. There's some things that you can also note are like mood changes, frequent emotional outbursts, sudden academic decline, changes in eating and sleeping. And there are also expressions of hopelessness. You know what I mean? So we want to recognize that increasing awareness in terms of health for staff, parents, and students is essential for identifying or recognizing warning signs as it pertains to self-harm. And so one of the other things that we might want to look at is what are the risk and protective factors. Some of the risk factors that, as was mentioned, is like family conflicts, exposure to bullying or trauma or isolation. And so what are some of the supportive factors that schools can actually put in place? Schools can ensure that there are supportive adults within the school environment. Research has shown, that when students are encouraged and supported within the school environment, it encourages them to be comfortable. It encourages them to express themselves. It encourages them to have a sense of belonging. And we also know that some of the protective factors that you can employ are things such as emotional regulation skills, as was mentioned previously by Dr. Morgan. Protective factors are things such as a safe school environment. What does the school environment look like? How is that environment protecting children? How is that environment fostering holistic development? And so that brings me to focusing on school climate. Educational psychology and educational administration will showcase that the school climate that is characterized by things such as empathy, inclusivity, trust, and strong relationships can serve as protective factors against self-harm. So today we want to look at a whole school approach to self-harm. We want to look at early detection and supportive responses into all aspects of school life. The whole school approach addresses individual issues as well as it addresses school-wide student wellness and school climate. No, the school climate is very integral, and the principal as lead for the school actually does play an integral role in managing the climate of the school. So we're finding out that school climate refers to the overall quality and character of school life. It includes the way teachers, students, administrators, parents, and staff experience the school environment. And this experience entails social, emotional, physical, and the academic experience. And why is it that the school climate is so important? Because when you have a school climate where there is safety, where there is respect, where there is support and inclusion, then we find that the children will feel valued and they will feel connected. So the school climate, when it deals with like how do we have a whole every staff member contributes to the school climate. So we want to emphasize that. Teachers and staff can improve the climate by speaking to students respectfully, listening actively, encouraging positive behavior, responding calmly to concerns and to issues, and most importantly, by creating welcoming classrooms where students are supported. I like to say to my students that trust is a little different from respect because respect is given, you know. Respect is a basic human right. And so if I enter the classroom, one of the first things am going to extend to you as a student is respect. And I am going to respect you because it's a basic human right. And so we have to look at that importance and how students respond to that. So prevention in terms of self-harm includes so many things. So many things. All right. It includes mental health education. It includes social and emotional learning. It includes anti-bullying programs. It includes wellness activities. And we heard some of the wellness activities, some of the practical wellness activities that were listed before. All right. And so all of those things are very important. In managing self-harm, we want to look at the role of teachers, the role of students, and the role of parents. All right. So first we'll start with the role of teachers. So literally, I hinted at it earlier, that the school acts as a critical front line. Staff often report issues of self-harm because they are in direct contact with the students. So in order for us to have a system that flows beautifully, there ought to be specific training for teachers, you know, training them how to notice the warning signs, to respond calmly without judging. I saw this thing on Instagram the other day where people were playing some sort of game. I don't know what the correct name is. And it is something that is called We Listen and We Don't Judge. And so if that is incorporated with students where they feel like there is a climate of a non-judgmental approach, they are twice likely to talk about issues and concerns that they are facing. So if schools create an environment where teachers validate the students' feelings, refer students appropriately, like to guidance counselors if they recognize problems, or create healthy emotional classrooms that are safe, these things will help with our students navigate difficulties. It can serve as prevention or it can serve as intervention. So we want a climate where all the staff receive universal self-harm training, mental health training, and some sort of trauma training that we are building. We looked at the parents. So the parents play a very big role. Parents should have open communication with their children because without that dialogue, children will not feel comfortable to see with them. So we have noted that, you know, when parents are trained in communication and responding to their children appropriately, it helps with parental relationship and serves as a good catalyst in self-harm. We also found that when there is a relationship between parents and students, children are more likely to feel supported. You know what I mean? Parents are better able to monitor the emotional well-being of their children when there is a relationship between parents and school. Parents are more likely to seek help early, to seek support, are more likely to come to school strategies that are very much essential for the proper. One of the other things that we can at is the how will students come
Okay, we seem to be having some technical challenges with respect to Mrs. Dawkins Brown. So in the interim, until we're able to get her back online, I'm just reminding you that for persons requesting CMEs and CE
strategies. So, for example, we know of a common phenomenon called peer counselors. Peer counselors in schools can also be trained to recognize warning signs, to report concerns appropriately, and to encourage referrals. So when we say peer counselors, we are not saying that the peer counselors are taking the place of the guidance counselors in the schools, because the peer counselors are not going to be counseling in that manner, but they are going to be serving as a gap between the school, the student body, and the guidance counseling department. So I have seen where we have active peer counselors and they are able to encourage students who are having difficulties in this manner to seek help and guidance through the office of the guidance counselors. They are very useful in accompanying students to the guidance office if needed. And they just serve as that point of contact where they are encouraging students to get help from a designated adult. All right. So when we have student supports, even the same peer counseling body can also put together student wellness initiatives. No, I can tell you from experience that when they put together their initiatives, the students usually gravitate towards it because they are putting things in place that are meaningful for them. And so with student support, we are seeing where it creates safe spaces where students' voices can be heard. And we are doing away with the myth, this whole Jamaican thing where we are taught that children must be seen and not heard. So we create that space for them, emotionally safe space where they are seen and heard, and they have somewhere, you know, where they can talk about things that are bothering them. Some of them, the measures that come through the whole school help is to encourage things such as journaling, deep breathing exercises, physical activity, art and music expressions. Of course, we want to throw in talking to a trusted adults. And my colleague mentioned prayer and meditation. No, let me tell you something. I have seen where spirituality plays an important role in mental health and helping students to be grounded. So we want to help them to build healthy support systems.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We're not seeing your screen, Mrs. Dawkins.
You're not seeing my screen?
Reshare, but
sure
we're loving your
happening.
presentation. And if you're unable to, that's okay. You may continue your presentation without the screen share. But Participants are asking for your PowerPoint presentation.
They're asking for the PowerPoint. All right,
Yes.
I had sent it to Dr. Shetty, so he has a copy of it.
Okay, thank you for that. But if you're able to
Right.
share, that would be good. If not, that's okay. If you can share it, the screen. So,
all right, let me try again to share. I'm not sure why it's not sharing.
so you go to the bottom again, identify share. And while you're doing that, I will just take the opportunity again to remind participants. We are reminding all participants that you may email your request for CMEs and CEUs to Child Month Mental Health at gmail.com. I noticed that a number of persons are requesting certificates for CMEs and CEUs. We're saying email to Child Month Mental Health at gmail.com, and reminding you also that you can pose your questions, type them in the chat, and at the end of the presentations, we will take questions as best as possible. Thank you. We're now seeing your presentation, Mrs. Dawkins Brown. Thank you.
Right, so you're saying that you're seeing it now?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, great, great. All right. So we want to look at intervention measures. And it's very important when dealing with self-harm that schools establish clear intervention protocols, you know. We want to ensure that students are properly assisted. So we're saying that the interventions may include school counseling, safety planning, professional referrals, which is very important, trauma-informed care, family support, and follow-up. So where self-harm is concerned, it is very, very important to have the support of the family working alongside the school. And so we also partner with healthcare professionals such as the Child Guidance Clinic, as was mentioned earlier. We also partner with hospitals and clinics. All right, so the goal is that early intervention is needed with coordinated support. So one of the things that we also look at is the crisis response. So we want to ensure that people are trained in self-harm and suicide prevention. Members of staff know how to escalate concerns. So for example, when I say escalate concerns, I mean like a teacher who would have recognized that a student is self-harming. So remember that we said that the teachers are in direct contact with the students. And so they may notice things like, for example, the guidance counselor isn't noticing because they have a more direct contact or more contact time with the students. The teacher now needs to escalate the concerns to the guidance counseling office with the proper measures of referral. All right. And so schools need to have functioning protocols, you know. How do we identify and assess? What are the procedures? What are the safety procedures? What are the referral procedures that must be taken into consideration? The guardians must be contacted once self-harm is identified. Guardians or parents must be contacted. The situation has to be taken seriously, so we're not going to be looking at it like, oh, here we have an attention seeker who's this child just loves attention so much, and oh, here we go again. No, we're not going down that road. We are identifying the fact that this is something serious. Here we have somebody who is So this one is very useful in that the multi-tiered approach speaks to, it is the anti-bullying initiatives, it is the positive school climate, it is the guidance counseling classes that are used to deliver emotion regulation activities, or the social learning programs, or mental health education. And so the multi-tier approach has 3 tiers. So that actually is the first tier. All right. So with that tier, we are looking at promoting resilience. We are looking at reducing stigma, and we are looking at encouraging help seeking. Okay. And for the second tier, which is the targeted support. So with this support, we have check-ins, we have mentorship programs, and the goal for this is early intervention. So once we have early interventions, we have increased monitoring, and we also
Mrs. Dawkins Brown, we seem to be having a challenge hearing you and with your connection. It's been suggested that maybe if you turn off your camera and just present, that might
So
aid
have
with the
something.
connectivity. Mrs. Dawkins Brown, we're not hearing you. Okay, until we are able to have Mrs. Dawkins Brown return, hopefully momentarily. Again, reminding persons requesting CMEs and CEUs, please send your request to childmonthmentalhealth@gmail.com. That's childmonthmentalhealth@gmail.com. And it's placed in the chat on numerous occasions, so you may consult the chat. Mrs. Dawkins Brown, are you back? All right.
And also, if I may,
Yes,
I'm
go ahead,
inviting,
Dr. Shetty.
I'm inviting the participants who are enthusiastic to stay beyond 7:43 to attend our next and last webinar for the year, Child Month webinar, which is next Wednesday between 6 and 8. And it is harmful screen exposure from babysitting tablets to Instagram-induced suicide. So it will answer all your questions about exposure of children to screen, TV, tablet, phone, Instagram, social media, TikTok, video game addictions, porn addictions, and such, and give you some guidance as to how we can make digital hygiene
Yes,
when it comes to our children.
indeed. Thank you for that, Dr. Shetty. So reminding you that's next Wednesday, and we invite you to register. The link will be sent out and circulated, and it's between 6 and 8 p.m. And we do know, based on recent research, that there are so many correlations with respect to early and extended screen time and some of the behavioral challenges, anxiety, and the like that our children or young people are experiencing. Making a call again for Mrs. Dawkins Brown. Mrs. Dawkins Brown. All right, we're still having some challenges. So at this time, we would like to, until we are able to get back the presentation from Mrs. Dawkins Brown,
And I'm here now.
Oh, you're here. Thank you so
I'm
much.
here now.
Yes, and we're
All
saying
right.
maybe you might want to keep your camera off and just make the
Yes.
presentations because that might be aiding or adding to the distortion. Thank you. Welcome back.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I'm almost done. All right, so I am going to again try to share the screen just so that my visual viewers can actually see what's happening.
And also, I would like you to send a copy of the presentation to me so we could send or drop it in the chat. I did not see it yet. Thank you.
We didn't see it. All right, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Are you seeing my screen?
No, we're not.
You should be seeing it now.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
But
we are.
please put it
Okay.
onto the presenter mode.
All right, I'm putting it on slideshow,
Sure, slideshow.
but it is.
You'd have to go full screen first. I invite you to go full screen first and then slideshow. Full screen to the top right hand for us. No, full screen to the next, well, it might be to your left at the top here.
Ah,
All right.
That little square at the top on
We're
your
at the top
left.
oh, okay.
screen,
Okay.
yes. Full screen.
Okay.
No, the other side. At the top, yes, right up to the top where the box is. Further up. Up, 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 up. Yes. Where that two boxes, yes. Just open that up.
Oh, sorry.
I am not seeing it.
It's right at the top.
That little square at the left top edge.
There's your
of the-
icon. Go up further with the icon. Further up, up. That's
At
it.
action
Up,
square.
up,
No, above that.
above that. That's it right
That's
there. Right. Go back to it. No,
This
over.
here?
Over.
Yes, yes, yes. No, no.
Next, right.
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
yes.
That's it.
Mhm.
Press on that.
Oops.
All right.
Just
Just go to slideshow from
All right,
current.
let's try.
Slideshow from current. That's okay.
Okay, so what happens is I had it up before, it was showing me from current, but now it has removed all of that, so I can no longer click on current. So that's the problem I'm having.
All right.
No worries. You are doing
Yes, we're
amazing.
there. So
No
go ahead.
worries.
You may go ahead. Yes.
All right.
Nevertheless,
So
it's been amazing presentation. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Thank
please.
you. Thank you. All right, so let me just continue with what I can see and do. So we were looking at finishing up the crisis and crisis responses, you know what I mean? And going on to the multi-tiered approach. So we looked at the fact that it takes 3 tiers, right? So the first one can take the place like of a whole school approach where students are getting mental health lessons in their group guidance classes. They're getting social and emotional learning also in the group guidance classes, anti-bullying initiatives, because bullying we have found is a huge contributor for self-harm. And of course, we mentioned things such as the positive school climate. So all of that is tier 1. Okay, and the purpose of tier 1 again is to promote resilience, reduce stigma, and to just encourage students to seek help. So that is what we really want, them seeking help and getting the support that is needed. So we move on to tier 2 now, which is a targeted approach. So the tier 2 represents early intervention, increased monitoring, and emotional support. And it has to do with the check-in system. The check-in system is so vital. Can you imagine as a student in a school, right? And you're having an issue, and you have adults who care enough to do check-ins and check out with you on a daily basis. So you check in the morning, how you're doing, how you're feeling, and then you check out with that adult at the end of the day, how your day was, how it progressed, and how you're doing. That we have found works beautiful in terms of supporting students and letting them know that you are loved, you are appreciated, you are valued. So we found that the mentoring system also helps at the targeted approach. And so the intensive support, now we want to look at individual counseling, family intervention, very critical, because without the family support at home and them doing what they need to do to help to keep the children in check, we can actually fail at the end of the school. And so there has to be this partnership. It is necessary, this partnership between home and school, when we find that the children are, especially if they're at the high risk stage. So this is the intensive support now that is at tier 3. And so what is the whole reason for this? To ensure that we are causing stability, we're ensuring safety. So because there actually can be safety in numbers. When you have more than one person checking in on a particular student, it encourages safety. And so what are some of the things that we need? Supportive school environment. We spoke about that. So we need to foster trust. We need to foster empathy. We need to foster inclusivity. We need to foster emotional safety. We need to foster positive relationships. And we need to foster student connectedness. That is very, very important. Safe spaces, we can't emphasize that enough. There was an initiative through the Ministry of Health where they were creating wellness benches. The whole purpose of the wellness bench was to help to create safe spaces. So it was coming out of that. So the Ministry of Health was actually thinking about the safe spaces initiative when they thought about the wellness benches and getting those benches in schools. So what are some of the challenges that we face? Because it's not easy, In Jamaica, there still is this negative stigma where mental health is concerned. And so we want to cause students to understand that it's okay to not be okay. What's not okay is to stay there. So that's one of the messages that I personally bring across to students. It's okay to have a down day. What's not okay is to stay where you are at. And so some of the challenges that we may face is staff training, because staff may say, well, then it's not my responsibility. But we found that it's important to at least have an 80% buy-in. So you will not have everybody on board, but if you can get an 80% buy-in, you can get staff to comply. Confidentiality concerns is also a challenge, because students may feel that, will my information remain confidential? Well, if I share my heart and my soul, how is that going to be dealt with? So those are some of the challenges that are there. And so, what are the recommendations then if we find that we are having some of the challenges? Recommendations is simply, continue with wellness and anti-stigma initiatives. Very, very important. Increase mental health awareness. Very, very important. developing clear policies, we find that that's very, very important. And what's very important and is very continuous is just building and strengthening relationships and partnerships, and having that understanding that in dealing with self-harm, it's not a one-man show. And no one person can do it. The parent should not be working in isolation. The guidance counselors should not be working in isolation. Teachers should not be working in isolation. Students should not be keeping secrets for their peers and working in isolation, but there is strength in partnership. And so I would like to end by saying that, you know, the whole school-wide approach is a combination, in summary, of awareness, capacity building, prevention, early intervention, and collaboration. And something that I personally hold dear to my heart, especially after having learned about it in educational administration, is the positive effect of school climate, and just how important the school climate is for the students' well-being. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dawkins Brown. Wonderful presentation and practical nuggets that we can take, whether we are clinicians, educators, parents, guardians, counselors, we all can take away from that. As was said before, you will be sharing the presentation with Dr. Shetty, and we are anxious to get a copy of that. Thank you so very much. At this time, we will be taking a video from the IT team, and this video presentation is by Mrs. Zandra Levy, who is a clinical social worker and a play therapist. Thereafter, we'll be taking the questions. So we invite you again to type the question in the chat. Please type your questions in the chat. May we have the video presentation now from our media team?
Just to give an introduction to that, this was done by my colleague, Mrs. Zandra Levy-Reed. She is a clinical social worker and registered play therapist. She and her colleague, Miss Claire Atkinson, clinical psychologist, did a group intervention for girls who were cutting in a children's home. And it was 10 adolescents who were included in this group intervention for 4 months with a weekly session, and the impact was significant. Please take a watch.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shetty. As we await the video, we're reminded that next Wednesday, we will be having our
Could you
third
ask, sorry,
in
could you
our
ask
series.
Mrs. Brown to stop sharing, please? Mrs. Dawkins Brown
Dawkins Brown,
to stop sharing her screen. Thank you.
thank you. So next week we have our final in our 3-part series. On that, focus will be on screen time and the effects that has early exposure and long exposure in our children and adolescents. So Dr. Shetty, as our media team is trying to get that video up, may we ask this question of you? We're posing this question to you, one that came in the chat, and this is for Dr. Shetty. Going to the emergency room could cause panic in parents and children. Could seeing their primary care physician and psychologist or psychologist or counselor be more effective? Dr. Shetty, do you want to respond to that in the interim?
It all depends on the situation. If it is a first discovery where we do not know the severity of suicidal intention, I think taking the child or adolescent to emergency room would be helpful. But if they have been assessed and evaluated and have been found as having non-suicidal self-injury, and at that point the intent and the ideation doesn't look so severe, then that could be a better option. So they don't have to stay for a long time, because in the emergency room, it's not first come, first serve. They'll have children with injuries, adults with heart attack in adolescent place. They will have to wait. And that could be very frustrating sometimes. Although necessary to ensure that we are not overseeing, we are ignoring somebody who has a severe intent to kill herself or kill himself. And there is a tool which I find helpful. It is called Columbia Suicidal Severity Rating Scale, and it is on Android, Google stores, as well as in iStores, app stores. And that would be a good questionnaire to go through. And it will give us, it's not 100%, but it will give an idea where the child or adolescent is at that time.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Shetty. Quite informative. And we could make note of where we could get that information, and also the importance of emergency room care.
It is called the Columbia Protocol.
Yes.
The Columbia Protocol, that probably is called the Columbia Protocol. And the subheading would be Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Shetty. We are now going to view the video presentation that's been projected. Thank you, Stephen. No sound?
Stephen, no sound?
Okay, until Stephen sorts that out, our media team, I'd like to pose this question to Mr. Blake. Mr. Blake, our guidance counselor, are you still with us?
Yes, Mrs. Campbell, I'm still here.
Okay, so it says, is there any correlation between self-harm and people who have little or no religious background, or is it also one of those triggers?
Personally, I've never dealt with a case where the child says to me or anyone else that they are doing so because of religious reasons, whether they're off or being immersed too much. No, I've never experienced that. However, because of how children process information, it can, in fact, I believe, affect them. I believe that religion should be introduced to children in a particular way. And I believe that is why, even in church, you separate the children from adults, right? You have a baby, you feed them soft foods, and you gradually improve on the hardness of the food as they grow. I believe that is even how we are trained as educators, right? There must be scope and sequence in how we teach a child. right? I believe that the same approach should be taken. So could religion cause a child to self-harm? Possibly. I have never personally experienced it, but possibly. However, if it does happen, the approach is not necessarily the wholesale withdrawal of the child, but like with any other issue that the child is faced with, you listen to what the child is saying to you and you try to resolve it. Then you set goals moving forward.
Thank you so much for that,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Blake. Now let's hear from our IT team with the video. Thank you. Okay, we're still not hearing that video. So we're going to move into our next question.
Just to answer that question,
Sure.
remember the extreme cases come to psychiatrists, right?
Yes.
And I mean, church folks have been doing a wonderful job in keeping the children fed with good information, good gospel, and help them to build their character and their life, and also pull them from the brink. But also there could be situations where the child interprets, or maybe there was some sermons which were focusing on guilt and shame, and that could make the child get triggered, right? And also, I had cases where, unfortunately, some religious leaders actually molested them. So they just dismissed religion, everything that has to go with that, along with that experience of abuse. And there was a situation where a well-meaning teacher tried to hold hands with the child and pray for her, and she pushed her away and ran to the guidance counselor. So it all depends what is their personal experience with religion and church.
Thank you
Thank
so much for that, Dr. Shetty. And I can relate, being a practitioner and someone who has seen that in church, that in terms of differentiating, yes, we do pray, but for us and to know the signs and triggers where professional help is needed. And that's why these sessions are so important for us to be edified. Thank you so much for that. Are we ready to take the video, or do we move into other questions? Because I do have other questions. I will pose this question to Mrs. Dawkins Brown. Can peer counselors be a part of primary school information gathering with respect to your presentation? So we know that it's happening in our high schools, but our primary school educators are asking if this information can also be shared at the primary school level.
That's a very good question. I would encourage peer counseling even at the primary level, with proper training, you know what I mean? Because even at the high school level, they are trained to offer that support for peers, because we have found that, as I indicated in the presentation, it does help with student support. But I would also like to indicate that the research too does show, though, that cutting is not as prevalent in students under 12 years old.
Okay, thank you so much for that response, Mrs. Dawkins Brown. Dr. Shetty, you wanted to chime in.
Actually, the Ministry of Health Children's Clinic have used what they call bounce back together to train the teachers in the school to help traumatized children. And basically to help them to know what trauma is and what it does to you and what you can do to help yourself. And the Minister of Education has a version of it called Return to Happiness. And the guidance counselors in primary school have been trained recently as in February, and in that intervention. And they're all not specific to cutting, but if they can address the trauma and help children to be informed about what trauma is and what it does to you and what you can do to help yourself, I think it can only be helpful. And actually, I have a workbook I could drop in the chat now. And it's free to be used. It's online, and it's non-clinical, so it doesn't need you to be a psychologist or psychiatrist to use it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Shetty. You did mention bounce back, and although we might know about it in the health sector and also in the education sector, there are other persons who are online. Could you just give us a brief background to what bounce back is?
Originally started as intervention for children who were traumatized in the West Kingston security incursion in West Kingston. And it is derived from trauma-focused CBT. It has components in which can be delivered by non-clinicians, teachers, parents even. And bottom line is it'll tell you what trauma is and what it does to you: nightmares, flashbacks, anger, not being able to focus, and what you can do to help yourself: deep breathing, muscle relaxation, visualization, and untwisting your twisted thinking. So those are the elements of that intervention. And there's a more child-friendly version of it called Return to Happiness, which Minister of Education has trained a lot of guidance counselors from primary school. And there's the high school version of it also, where we have trained the teachers to help the children in the classroom on a regular basis with that intervention.
Thank you so much for that information, Dr. Shetty, and I'm sure a number of our students and teachers alike have benefited from that. We will now take the video. Are we ready for the video, or do we continue with our line of questioning? Okay, we're still having a challenge with the video, so we're going to take another question. And the question being posed here, and I think I will pose this one again to Dr. Shetty. It says, my son is autistic. I notice of late that each time he makes a mistake, he feels he must feel some form of pain for it. For example, he accidentally bumped someone else's lunch from their hand at school, or for that reason, he threw away his lunch in the bin because, according to him, he needed to be hungry since he had made someone feel bad or food fell on the ground. How can I navigate that as a parent? Dr. Shetty?
There are several issues here, because many children in the autism spectrum, they think literally crime, punishment. I committed a crime of doing this, I must be punished. So they need to be exposed to the aspects of forgiveness and act of kindness. So forgive yourself, ask for forgiveness, and do an act of kindness. Carry some KFC for that child next day. I'm just joking. And see how that works. But also, they might, some of the children in the spectrum might uh, be more prone to self-injury because their opioid system is a little different, and they do, just to self-regulate, sometimes pinch themselves, bite themselves, hit the head to the wall, and sometimes it can become quite addictive to the point that child in autism spectrum realized that he's addicted to hitting himself in the face, and he was asking his mom to tie his hand to the side to his belt so that he will not do it. So it could be challenging to understand these kids and help these kids.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Shetty. This we are seeing another question in the chat that we are going to take. And based on the nature of this question, again, this seems like a question for Dr. Shetty as the psychologist. If you have noted that a child is showing signs of neurological challenges, what would be the first point of contact for that child with respect to mental health practitioners or just health practitioners in general? Dr. Shetty?
Okay. I want to be clear whether it's neurological or mental health, sometimes very difficult. And it is also artificial to say that neurological is different from mental, because most mental conditions have some neurological basis. But what I meant to say is it issue about seizures, for example, that will be first domain of neurologists who could be sought in the government system. In town, it is Bustamante Hospital for kids younger 11 and down, and older kids would be at KPH. But also, first step would be to go to general practitioners who are very knowledgeable and experienced to diagnose some common mental disorders and make the appropriate referrals as needed. And there are child guidance clinics island-wide. In fact, I dropped a list of child guidance clinics and other mental health clinics in the island. Probably it got lost in all the chats. And you can go to any major hospital. Either they might have a child guidance clinic in it, or they might give information about which is the nearest child guidance clinic, which could be in a bigger clinic. So that would be where you'd seek help, but a referral from your guidance counselor if the issues are in school, and a referral from your general practitioner if you had the chance to get the child to GP. It would be helpful to give a background so we can start from there. But also there are many clinics who take walk-in cases where you could walk in with a list of challenges your child is facing, and there'll be person who will be listening to you and determining whether child guidance clinic would be appropriate for your child with that particular problem. And as Mrs. Dawkins Brown was mentioning, there are different level of problems. There are some problems which can be treated at school level, and there are some problems must be referred to professionals like psychologists and psychiatrists. Hope that answers some of the question.
It would to me. Thank you. And the final question I will pose to Mrs. Dawkins Brown, and then I will hand over to Dr. Shetty to close this session. And Mrs. Dawkins Brown, this question is, based on your presentation, can the strategies shared be used in our early childhood teaching learning space for continued or with respect to self-biting? Mrs. Dawkins Brown?
Yes, certainly they can be used. Even though the babies are very small, they can actually learn from teaching that is appropriate to them at their age level. So even if we are going to take the multi-tiered approach, the classroom teacher can actually have her structured lessons where she is teaching and discouraging that sort of behavior. Then if we're going to take it up to tier 2 now to the targeted approach, they respond as well to therapy and to counseling. So we can target them, in the targeted approach and have regular check-ins with them to find out how they're feeling, how they're doing. And we can also take it up to tier 3 with the high risk students and have individual counseling with them. So certainly it does work even at that level.
Thank you so much for that. I would like to take this opportunity before Dr. Shetty comes to thank all the presenters for presenting so well and for the very informative, interactive, edifying sessions and presentations. We were all the better for being on the platform and being a part of these very timely and important topics. Thanks all presenters. I'd like to also acknowledge that the session should have been from 6 to 8 p.m. and we're a little over that, and we attribute that mainly to the technical glitches, but we're happy that you all stayed with us. And remember that we have another session, webinar next Wednesday, and we invite you all to register, spread the word, because the topics being spoken to, being presented, are very important as we continue to cater to the needs of our children in every respect. It was my pleasure just steering this session, this webinar this evening, and I now hand over to Dr. Shetty.
Thank you very much, Dr. Campbell, so ably moderating the webinar. And what can I say? I want to thank all the participants who said faithfully 20 minutes past our ending time at 8 o'clock. And we reach
Okay, we're not hearing Dr. Shetty. So on behalf of Dr. Shetty, we would like to thank all the participants for being online, reminding you again, for those who would like their certification, their CME certification and the CEU certification, that you should send your request to Child Month Mental Health at gmail.com. Child Month Mental Health at gmail.com. So see you online next Wednesday at 6 p.m. as we continue the final in the series of our Child Month webinars. And next week, we'll be looking at screen time and the effects and challenges as it relates.
It looks like machine is saying, hey, I'm tired, it's time to go home.
Go ahead, Dr. Shetty, we're wrapping up. Just
yes, and
thank you.
And then came Mr. Blake, who laid out that basics are still basics and very important. Eating nutritious food, playing outside, connecting with your friends and family, which is difficult when you think about inner city communities where they don't allow them to go out because they don't want to get caught up in gunfight and get shot, and in rich circles where they don't want their kids to go out and mingle with Butus. And but it's so important. This connection is probably one of the main reasons why kids become depressed, and some of them also cut. And he laid out the basics, which are still very relevant: eating, sleeping, and exercising, and connecting. And then was a magnificent presentation by Mrs. Dawkins Brown, although the gods of technology were not blessing today, were posing challenges. But in spite of that, she made a wonderful presentation looking at what school at different level can help, whether it's peers, whether it's teachers, whether it's guidance counselor, principals, and the like, and how problems could be solved at school level and referrals could be made at professional level. So thank you very much for participating and asking questions. I want to repeat that the email is working, and that is child month mental health at gmail.com. And the emails from last webinar are safe, are being processed, will be awarded CMEs and CUs as the case may be. Not to worry. And I invite you again next week, 6 to 8, on what the screen has done to our kids and adolescents and what we can do to help. Thank you very much. Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Good night.